The traitorous son-in-law, the price of greed. She never thought the one she loved like her own son would be the one to destroy her. The betrayal didn't come with thunder, it came quietly, with a whisper behind closed doors and a signature on a paper that took everything away. For 74 years, Mrs. Lon had lived a life of quiet dignity in the village of Traitorous. A widow for over 3 decades, she raised her only daughter, Nok, through storms, floods, and seasons of hunger. Lon was the kind of woman whose name brought comfort in the neighborhood. She never asked for anything, yet gave everything. So when Nok married Vin, a city-born man with charming words and shiny shoes, Lon had offered him a home not just in her house but in her heart. It was her greatest mistake. 10 years ago, the day Vin arrived at her doorstep as Nok's fiancé, Lon remembered how awkward he looked in the countryside, swatting away mosquitoes with the same hand that adjusted his gold watch. He smiled at her respectfully and called her Mom right away. It had warmed her heart. She thought, this is a man who understands love and gratitude. Over the years, he never raised his voice. He bought her medicine when she was sick. He even kneeled to help her wear socks in winter. The village women envied Lon. Your son-in-law is the kind of man we all dream of, they'd say. And she'd smile, unaware of the storm building silently behind those kind gestures. Present day, it was a warm Thursday morning when it all collapsed. Lon came home from the market, her basket full of vegetables, humming an old lullaby. As she reached her front gate, she saw a moving truck parked outside. Strange men were carrying out her furniture. "Excuse me, what are you doing?" she asked, alarmed. One of the workers looked at her and said, "We're under orders from Mr. Vin. The house is being sold. He said the owner is relocating." Lon laughed, confused. No, this house belongs to me, to my family." Then she saw Vin standing at the doorway, arms crossed, a thin smile on his face. "You shouldn't have come back early, Mom," he said. "It would have been easier." The world collapsed in that instant. "What are you saying, Vin?" "I'm saying this house is legally mine now. You signed the papers last year. Remember? You asked me to help manage the paperwork." Her knees weakened. "The paper? The one in English? The one he said was for insurance?" "You lied," she whispered. Vin shrugged. "I protected the family assets. Nok agrees with me. This village has nothing to offer. We're moving to Saigon. You'll have a place in a retirement home." "Retirement home?" Her voice cracked. "You'll be comfortable. They take care of everything. It's better than this mud and memories." She looked past him, searching for her daughter. Nok wouldn't allow this. She wouldn't. But Nok wasn't there. She was already in the car, eyes averted. That night, Lon slept outside the temple gates. Rain fell quietly. Her hands shook, not from cold but from the ache of betrayal. Her life, her sacrifices, her family, was this the reward? By morning, neighbors found her curled under a blanket of leaves. When they brought her in, the entire village buzzed with disbelief. "Vin? That polite man. He's heartless. Selling your mother-in-law's house behind her back? Shameful." Mrs. Tu, Lan's closest friend, wept beside her. "You gave them everything. They threw you out like trash." Lon didn't speak for 2 days. She stared at the wall. Her heart was too full of shards. Flashback years ago. She remembered the day Nok was born. The power had gone out. Her husband held a lantern while Lon screamed through the pain. The baby came out purple and silent. Lon cried out, begging the heavens. Then, suddenly Nok wailed. That wail became her heartbeat. Lon never let Nok out of her sight. She gave up new clothes for school fees, took extra shifts as a rice packer just so Nok could go to high school in the district town. Vin never saw those days. He only saw what Nok had becoming, a gentle, well-raised woman with loyalty embedded in her smile. But loyalty can fade, especially when wrapped in comfort and city dreams. Back to present. The next week, Vin made a mistake. He underestimated the power of a wounded heart in a village with memory. When the story of Lan's eviction reached the local radio station, a journalist named Min, whose mother once received free rice from Lon during a drought, decided to act. He visited her, documented her story, and aired it under the title, "Thrown Away, a Mother Betrayed by Her Own." Within days, the clip went viral across Vietnam. Comments flooded in. Donations poured. Reporters camped outside the old gate. Under pressure, Vin appeared on national television. He smiled, of course. Always that rehearsed smile. We did it for her safety, he said. The countryside is not suitable for the elderly. The home we chose has nurses, amenities. But when they showed a live feed of the retirement home, viewers gasped. A concrete block with rusted gates and peeling walls. It looked more like a prison than a place for rest. The country turned against him. Strangers came to the village just to bring Mrs. Lawn flowers, blankets, food. One young man knelt before her and said, "My mother used to talk about you. She passed last year. Let me help you now." Lan's quiet eyes began to shine again, not with revenge but with the warmth of being seen. And this was only the beginning. The wind carried whispers now. Whispers that didn't die in the trees, but echoed from screen to screen, heart to heart. For the first time in decades, Mrs. Lawn became more than a forgotten elder in a dusty village. She became a symbol. A symbol of every parent left behind, every elder silenced, every sacrifice turned against them. 3 days after the broadcast, a silver van rolled into Traitorous. A group of university students, members of a social justice club, stepped out, clutching banners and cameras. Among them was Thursday, a journalism major with eyes full of fire. She approached Lawn with both reverence and rage. "Ma'am," Thursday said softly, kneeling beside her, "my grandmother raised me too. I know what this kind of betrayal feels like. We want to tell your story right." Lawn stared at the girl, unsure. "The story's already told." "No." Thursday shook her head. "It's only begun." By sunset, they had erected a makeshift community center on Mrs. Two's front yard. Posters went up. Petitions circulated. Thousands of signatures. Legal advisors offered help. Even a retired judge from Da Nang wrote in. What most people didn't know was that Vin's plan had layers. The paperwork Lawn signed wasn't just about the house. It included hidden clauses about land ownership, inheritance rights, and bank transfers. Vin had long been siphoning money from land savings, modest but hard-earned. A local lawyer named Mr. Dewey, whose father had once been treated by Lawn with herbal remedies for free, stepped in. "I'll do it pro bono," he said. With every document revealed, Vin's mask cracked further. It turned out he had already mortgaged the house. Not to care for Lawn, but to buy shares in a tech company in Ho Chi Minh City. Greed disguised as protection. When Lawn was asked if she wanted to take legal action, she hesitated. "Court will tear the family apart," she said. Thursday responded, "He already did that." Lawn remained silent for a long time before finally nodding. "Then let it be torn. What's broken must be shown in daylight." The court date was set. Knock, who had remained silent all this time, showed up at Lan's doorstep one rainy afternoon. She didn't knock, just stood under the awning, soaked, eyes red. Lawn opened the door without a word. The two women stared at each other for a long moment. Knock fell to her knees. "I didn't know he used the house as collateral," she whispered. "I didn't think he'd go this far. I was scared. I'm sorry, Mom." Lawn placed a hand on her shoulder, her voice soft but firm. "Being scared is no excuse for abandoning your blood." Knock wept. Lawn didn't. Not anymore. The court was packed. The judge, old but sharp, stared down at the defendants. Vin, wearing a pressed gray suit, looked unfazed. Knock sat beside him, expression unreadable. Lawn sat in the witness box, wrapped in her faded brown shawl. "I raised him like my own," she said, voice steady. "I gave him my trust, my home, my name. And he sold it for profit." Vin's lawyer objected. "Emotional manipulation." The judge raised a hand. "Let her speak." Lawn continued. "You don't need to be blood to be family. But betrayal makes you a stranger." Gasps from the crowd. Vin didn't look at her. He never once turned his eyes toward the woman who once cooked him soup when he was sick, or patched the elbow of his suit before his first job interview. The judge spoke firmly. "The court finds that Vin Tran committed fraud, breach of trust, and financial abuse against his mother-in-law, Mrs. Lawn. All property transfers are hereby annulled. Criminal investigation will proceed separately." Vin was escorted out. Knock, after the verdict, approached her mother. "Can I come home?" she asked. Lawn looked at her. "Home is not a place. It's trust. You must rebuild that." Knock nodded, silently accepting the long road ahead. The villagers, once quiet and wary, now held their heads high when they walked past Lan's gate. Children stopped by to bring fruit. Young couples came to sit and talk. Thursday and her team organized storytelling nights, where elders could share their lives loud and clear, not as burdens, but as bridges of wisdom. Lon found herself laughing again. One morning, she planted a new tree in the front yard. A guava tree. For my grandchildren, she told a passing child. But you don't have any, the boy said. She smiled. I might. Weeks after the trial, Lon received a letter from Vinherm prison. It was short. Mother, I don't ask for forgiveness. I ask for understanding. I never felt like I belonged in your world, and instead of learning from you, I tried to own what wasn't mine. You gave me love, and I turned it into leverage. That is my shame to carry. Vin. Lon folded the letter carefully and placed it in her drawer. She didn't reply. Spring arrived early that year. Lon walked out one morning and saw the guava tree had bloomed its first white flower. Behind her, the village children were playing. Young men were helping paint a neighbor's fence. Thursday was interviewing another elder. And Lon. She finally felt peace. Not because she had won, but because truth had been restored. She turned her face to the sun, and for the first time in years, felt warmth that didn't come from sacrifice but from life itself. The guava tree wasn't the only thing blooming in Traitorous. The old woman who once sat in silence now opened her doors every weekend. Villagers called it Land's porcha place where tea was hot, stories were honest, and shame wasn't hidden but unpacked gently. One day, Nock returned not just to visit, but to stay. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She simply worked. She swept, cooked, helped repair the cracked tiles, and slowly without words rebuilt the bridge she had burned. Lon didn't say much, but one morning, when Nock handed her a bowl of hot porridge, Lon took it with both hands. They didn't speak, but silence can be a form of forgiveness too. Thursday returned with a new idea. She gathered stories from elderly people across rural Vietnam, stories of sacrifice, of love unspoken, of children gone cold. She called it The Hands That Raised Us. Each elder wrote a letter, not to anyone specific but to the world. Land's letter was titled, If They Only Knew. If they only knew the hunger behind my smiles. The night I walked 8 kilometers for a bottle of cough syrup. The time I skipped rice for 3 days so she could have books. Maybe then they would visit. Maybe then they would stay. The letter reached over 2 million reads in a week. Lon was invited to speak at a national eldercare conference in Hanoi. At first, she declined. I'm not a speaker, she told Thursday. I'm a mother who failed. No, Thursday said. You're a mirror. And right now, the country needs to look at itself. With trembling hands, Lon stepped onto the stage at age 75. I am not here to beg for respect, she said. I am here to remind you. The first breath your children took cost someone a piece of their body, their sleep, their freedom. She didn't cry, but others did. Months passed. Then, one afternoon, a prison van pulled into Traitorous. Vin stepped out, flanked by 2 guards, in gray uniform and handcuffs. But his eyes had changed, no longer slick, but hollow. He was given 1 hour with Lon. They sat beneath the guava tree. I don't expect anything, he said. Then you've already learned something, Lon replied. He looked up. I've memorized every day I failed you. That's the real sentence. Lon didn't reach for his hand, but she didn't turn him away either. I hope prison teaches you what I couldn't, she said quietly. Then she stood up and walked back inside. Vin wept alone, for the first time. Lon used the public donations to start a local vocational school for elder women. Some learned to sew again. Others taught cooking. One, a former nurse, trained young girls in first aid. Nock became one of the instructors. She taught literacy to elder women who never got to finish grade school. At first, Lon just watched from afar. But eventually, she joined. She taught the silent lessons, how to read a face, how to understand silence, how to love without words. A year after the trial, the villagers held a celebration. Land's name was painted on a banner, to the mother who raised a village. She stood quietly as neighbors young and old gathered around. Some brought gifts. Others brought apologies. Even men who once dismissed her as just another old woman now called her Ba Lon with reverence. During the speeches, Nock stepped up. My mother didn't just survive betrayal, she said. She transformed it. Lon lowered her head. Sometimes, dignity grows loudest in humility. Lon began writing in a red notebook she kept by her bed. She wrote not for the world but for herself. She documented lessons. Never confuse silence with weakness. Blood can betray, but character always shows. A full stomach without love is still hunger. And most of all, when you give everything, Make sure it's to someone who knows how to hold it. One autumn evening, Knock answered the phone and froze. Mom, it's the hospital. Lon had collapsed while walking home. Her heart had murmured too long, too quietly. At the hospital, she regained consciousness briefly. You'll be okay, Knock whispered. Lon smiled faintly. Don't lie to a woman who raised liars. Knock wept openly. I need more time. Lon looked up at the ceiling. I had just enough, she whispered. Then she closed her eyes. It wasn't a funeral, it was a pilgrimage. Over 500 people came, some from as far as Dalat journalists. Elders, mothers, children. A Buddhist monk led the ceremony, but he didn't speak much. The silence was sacred. Vin, now released early for good behavior, stood at the edge. He didn't speak either. He simply bowed. Lon had asked for no gravestone. Instead, they planted a garden. Each flower bed named after a lesson: sacrifice, kindness, courage, boundaries. At the center, the guava tree stood tall. Years later, the vocational school expanded. The Letters Project became part of the national curriculum. Thursday became a published author, her first book titled The Woman Under the Guava Tree. Knox stayed in Truong, running the school. And Vin? He lived alone in a small rented room. Worked odd jobs. Never remarried. Every month, he mailed a donation to the school. Always anonymous. But they knew. One spring, Knock adopted a little girl named Mai, orphaned from a storm in Quang Nai. Mai had a curious spirit and asked many questions. One day, she pointed at Lan's old notebook and asked, "Who wrote that?" Knock smiled. "Your grandmother. Can I meet her?" "You already have. She's in everything you see here." Mai opened the notebook and read a line out loud. "The ones who hurt you may shape you, but they don't get to finish your story." On the 10th anniversary of Lan's passing, the villagers held a memorial. At sunset, they lit lanterns and sent them drifting into the sky. Each carried a word: respect, justice, love, truth. Knock held Mai's hand. "She would have been proud of you," Knock whispered. Mai looked up. "She still is." The guava tree rustled in the breeze. And somewhere beyond the pain, beyond betrayal, beyond even forgiveness, Lon rested. Not in sorrow, but in peace. The end.